The first punch landed before anyone in the lobby realized what was happening. Coffee splashed across the polished marble floor as a little girl screamed for her father. 3 men in expensive suits surrounded a tired single dad carrying nothing but a worn backpack, a folder of paperwork, and his daughter's tiny hand. They laughed while security guards looked away. One of the men grabbed the father's collar and sneered that people like him had no business entering their headquarters. The child cried, begging them to stop, but the fake corporate officers only smiled wider, convinced no one important would ever defend a struggling father. What none of them knew was that within minutes, the real CEO would walk through those glass doors and reveal a truth so unbelievable that their entire careers, and the company they thought they controlled, would collapse before everyone's eyes. Before this unforgettable story continues, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who still believes kindness can change lives, and subscribe to the Dad Chronicles if you believe every good heart deserves a second chance. Your support allows these inspiring stories to reach people who need hope the most. Morning sunlight poured through the towering windows of the Orion Crest Corporate Center, painting golden reflections across the spotless lobby. Employees hurried toward elevators with steaming coffee cups and glowing tablets while luxury cars lined the entrance outside. Among them walked a man who seemed almost invisible. His name was Nolan Mercer, a 36-year-old widowed father whose clothes were neat but clearly worn from years of careful use. Beside him skipped his 8-year-old daughter, Juniper, clutching a small notebook decorated with colorful butterflies. She had insisted on coming because she wanted to see the building where her father hoped to start a new chapter. Life had not been gentle with Nolan. 3 years earlier, his wife had lost her battle with a sudden illness, leaving him to raise Juniper alone. He had sold nearly everything they owned to cover hospital bills, moved into a modest apartment, and worked countless temporary jobs while attending evening business classes online. Every late-night assignment had been completed after Juniper fell asleep. Every paycheck disappeared into rent, groceries, school supplies, and medical insurance. Yet despite the exhaustion that settled permanently beneath his eyes, Nolan never allowed bitterness to reach his daughter. She still woke every morning to homemade breakfasts, encouraging notes tucked inside her lunchbox, and bedtime stories filled with hope. Weeks earlier, Nolan had received an unexpected invitation to Orion Crest Holdings after submitting an innovative restructuring proposal through an anonymous executive challenge. The email explained that the board wanted to meet the author personally because the proposal identified millions of dollars in hidden waste while improving employee welfare. Nolan almost deleted the message, assuming it was fake, until a follow-up call confirmed the appointment. He had no expensive suit, only the charcoal jacket he wore at his wedding, carefully altered by a kind neighborhood tailor who refused payment after hearing his story. Juniper squeezed his hand and whispered that he looked like the smartest dad in the whole city. Nolan smiled, although nervousness churned inside him. He hoped this meeting might finally provide stability. He dreamed of buying Juniper a bedroom with pink curtains instead of the fold-out bed she shared in their tiny apartment. More than anything, he wanted to prove that perseverance still mattered. As they approached the reception desk, 3 sharply dressed men stepped directly into their path. Their expensive watches gleamed beneath the daylight, and each carried himself with exaggerated authority. They introduced themselves as senior corporate officers responsible for screening executive visitors. Their polished smiles quickly turned cold as their eyes traveled over Nolan's modest shoes and faded backpack. Without checking the appointment records, they accused him of fabricating the invitation. One claimed that desperate people invented interviews every day hoping to sneak inside prestigious companies. Another mocked Juniper for believing her father belonged among successful executives. Employees nearby lowered their eyes, unwilling to challenge men they believed held tremendous power. Nolan calmly offered the official invitation and identification. Instead of examining the documents, one of the men crumpled the papers and tossed them onto the marble floor. Juniper hurried to collect them with trembling hands while tears filled her eyes. Nolan bent beside her, quietly reassuring her that dignity was worth more than pride. His calmness somehow angered them even more. The tallest man shoved Nolan backward, accusing him of resisting corporate security. Another grabbed his jacket and demanded he leave before police were called. Juniper cried out and tried pulling at the man's sleeve, but he brushed her aside hard enough for her notebook to slide across the floor. Butterflies sketched lovingly across its cover scattered beneath hurried footsteps. Gasps echoed through the lobby. Several employees reached for their phones, unsure whether to record or intervene. Security guards exchanged nervous glances but remained frozen, believing the three men outranked them. Nolan refused to strike back. He simply shielded Juniper behind him and quietly asked for the opportunity to speak with someone from executive administration. His restraint came not from weakness but from the promise he had made beside his wife's hospital bed, that their daughter would never see hatred become her father's answer to cruelty. Just as another shove sent Nolan against a marble column, the revolving entrance doors opened. An older gentleman wearing a simple navy suit entered without an entourage. Few people recognized him immediately because he rarely visited headquarters without notice. Conversations slowed as department heads suddenly straightened their posture. Security guards instantly saluted. The real chief executive officer, Malcolm Ashford, had arrived. His sharp eyes absorbed the scene in seconds. He noticed the frightened child. He noticed the scattered documents. He noticed Nolan standing protectively in front of Juniper despite blood beginning to form along his lip. Silence settled across the lobby. The three fake corporate officers immediately rushed toward Malcolm, attempting to explain that they had prevented an unauthorized intruder from entering company property. They spoke confidently, expecting praise for defending the firm's reputation. Instead, Malcolm walked past them without saying a word. He knelt before Juniper, picked up the butterfly notebook, brushed away the dust, and returned it with a gentle smile. Then he helped Nolan gather every page of the proposal that had been thrown onto the floor. Only after that did he stand. He looked directly at the three men. His voice remained calm, yet every syllable carried unmistakable authority. He asked why they believed the invited guest should be assaulted instead of welcomed. The men froze. One insisted there had been confusion regarding executive protocol. Another claimed Nolan had become aggressive. Malcolm slowly opened the proposal folder. Inside rested a handwritten note. The moment he saw it, his expression softened. Months earlier, Malcolm himself had created the anonymous executive challenge. Hundreds of consultants submitted expensive presentations filled with complicated jargon. Only one proposal focused first on protecting ordinary employees, supporting working parents, reducing burnout, and restoring honesty throughout the company. Attached to that proposal was the handwritten note explaining that true leadership existed to serve people before profits because every employee was someone's family. Malcolm had never forgotten those words. He looked at Nolan with unmistakable respect. Then he faced everyone watching. He announced that Nolan Mercer was not merely an applicant. He was the brilliant strategist personally selected to become Orion Crest Holdings' newest executive director for organizational integrity. The lobby fell completely silent. Employees stared in disbelief. Juniper wiped away tears, trying to understand what had just happened. The three men turned pale. Malcolm then revealed an even more shocking truth. The men who claimed to be corporate officers were nothing more than mid-level contractors who had spent years pretending to possess executive authority. They intimidated junior staff, manipulated vendors, accepted illegal favors, and falsely represented themselves to gain influence throughout the company. A confidential investigation had already uncovered suspicious behavior, but Malcolm had lacked direct evidence of how they treated ordinary people when no true executive was watching. Today they had provided all the evidence themselves. Security officers who had remained silent moments earlier now received direct orders from Malcolm. The fake executives were immediately escorted from the building. As they protested, employees finally found the courage to speak. Receptionists described years of bullying. Maintenance workers admitted being humiliated repeatedly. Young interns revealed they had been threatened whenever they questioned unethical instructions. One by one, hidden truths surfaced. The illusion of power vanished. Malcolm turned toward Nolan and apologized publicly on behalf of the entire company. Nolan accepted with quiet grace. He explained that respect meant more than revenge. He requested only one thing, that every employee, regardless of title, be treated with dignity from that day forward. Those words spread throughout Orion Crest faster than any corporate memo. During the following months, remarkable changes transformed the organization. Nolan redesigned hiring practices so applicants were evaluated by character and ability rather than appearance. Anonymous employee feedback became mandatory for all managers. Parents gained flexible scheduling. Mental health support expanded. Scholarship programs helped employees continue their education. Promotion systems rewarded integrity alongside performance. Profit unexpectedly increased because people finally felt valued instead of feared. Juniper often visited headquarters after school. Employees competed to show her new projects, celebrate her birthdays, and display drawings she created for office bulletin boards. The once intimidating skyscraper slowly became another family for the little girl who had watched strangers hurt her father on that unforgettable morning. One afternoon Malcolm quietly confessed why Nolan's proposal had affected him so deeply. Decades earlier, Malcolm himself had been a poor single father after losing his wife unexpectedly. An older business owner had believed in him when everyone else judged his worn clothes instead of his character. That single act of compassion had changed his life forever. He realized history had offered him the chance to become that same blessing for someone else. Nolan smiled. Kindness, he said, always travels farther than we imagine. Years later, Orion Crest became nationally recognized not only for financial success but also for having one of the healthiest workplace cultures in the country. Business magazines praised innovation, yet employees privately knew the real turning point had been one frightened little girl clutching a butterfly notebook while her father chose dignity over anger. Juniper eventually graduated at the top of her class and pursued organizational psychology because she wanted every workplace to become a place where people felt safe and respected. Whenever interviewers asked what inspired her career, she remembered the morning sunlight reflecting across the marble lobby and the moment one compassionate leader refused to judge a father by his appearance. She always answered that greatness begins when someone chooses to see humanity before status. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, subscribe to the Dad Chronicles, and leave a comment telling us what part moved you the most. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world compassion is never wasted. Special request, comment, character creates destiny, if you believe a person's true worth is measured by integrity rather than appearance. As the years passed, Nolan never displayed the executive title engraved on his office door with pride. Instead, he kept the wrinkled interview invitation, the repaired butterfly notebook, and the coffee-stained proposal inside a simple frame hanging behind his desk. Whenever new employees asked why such ordinary items occupied the place where awards should stand, he simply smiled. Those pieces of paper reminded him that the world may judge people by clothing, wealth, or position, but true character reveals itself when kindness is offered to those who appear to have nothing. Every visitor who entered that office left understanding the same timeless lesson: power earned through fear eventually disappears, but respect built through compassion can transform families, companies, and generations. And somewhere beyond the glass walls of that towering building, another struggling parent walked into a new day believing hope was still alive because one ordinary father refused to let cruelty define his future.